Harry Houdini, the legendary illusionist and master of escape, dedicated his entire life to exposing charlatans and mediums who profited from people's suffering. His drive for truth was so strong that he made a pact with his wife Bess. If either of them were to die, the other would attempt to contact the deceased spirit using a special code. This code, known only to the two of them, was meant to serve as proof of the authenticity of the message. However, Houdini's death in 1926 left his mission unfinished. Bess, remaining loyal to his memory, spent years attending numerous spiritual seances, but without success. Years later, in 1932, a sensational announcement shocked the world. The medium Arthur Ford claimed to have received a message from Houdini himself. Bess, who had already begun to lose hope, agreed to attend a seance. This moment became one of the most mysterious in the history of spiritualism. What exactly happened during this seance? And could Ford's words truly have come from the great illusionist? The seance took place in an atmosphere of tension and hope. Bess was aware that this medium was her last chance to obtain proof of life after death. Arthur Ford, known for his reputation as an honest medium, was full of confidence. He assured Bess that he had received a crucial message through his spiritual guide, Fletcher, and in the silence of the room, words were spoken that made everyone present hold their breath. Ford began transmitting a coded message consisting of 10 letters, precisely the code Houdini had left for Bess before his death. She was overwhelmed. Her heart raced as she repeatedly verified the accuracy of each letter. It could not have been a coincidence, as this secret was known only to the two of them. Overcome with emotion, she said, "Harry, is it you?" For many, the seance became a moment of deep reflection. How is this possible? Can spirits truly convey messages across the boundary between life and death? For those present that day, it was more than just a show or an illusion. It was a step closer to solving humanity's greatest mystery. The emotions in the room were so intense that some attendees could not hold back their tears. Ford seemed to play the role of a mere intermediary in this story. His words sounded sincere, and he made no claim to fame. For him, it was simply another opportunity to prove the existence of something that defied logic. But for Bess, it was a personal revelation, the possibility of once again feeling the presence of her beloved husband. Could Ford's words have been true? Or was it a coincidence? The reader, like all those who attended the seance, is invited to ponder. Where does illusion end, and where does the true wonder begin? After the seance, Bess Houdini could not contain her emotions. Years of uncertainty, pain, and doubt seemed so distant. She kept repeating that this code could not have been known to anyone else. But what did that truly mean? Had her husband, who had dedicated his entire life to exposing fraud and spiritualism, actually delivered this message from the other side? Following the seance, public attention turned to Arthur Ford. His abilities drew both admiration and skepticism. Some saw him as a genuine medium who had proven the existence of life after death, while others accused him of having discovered the code through fraudulent means. But how could that have been possible? The code was complex and specific. Even if Ford had had access to records or information, it seemed practically impossible. Bess's emotional reaction was a pivotal moment for many observers. She had fought tirelessly for the truth, and her reaction lent additional weight to the event. If even Bess, who had been an unrelenting critic of charlatans, acknowledged the authenticity of the message, did that not mean Ford might indeed have contacted Houdini? Yet, as is often the case with extraordinary events, the question remained unresolved. The controversies surrounding the seance encouraged people to reflect. What is death? Is it the final end, or merely a transition to another state of being? A particularly interesting aspect of this story was how spiritualism repeatedly captured society's attention during challenging times. In the 1920s and 1930s, following the First World War and the Spanish flu pandemic, people worldwide sought ways to connect with their lost loved ones. Spiritualist seances became not just a form of entertainment, but also a kind of therapy for broken souls. And even though many remained skeptical, the story of Ford and Houdini made even the staunchest critics pause and wonder. What if it is true? Arthur Ford did not attempt to exploit the fame he gained after the seance. He consistently emphasized that his work was a service, a way to give people hope. His calm and confident demeanor helped build trust in his words. Even those who harbored doubts admitted that Ford did not come across as a typical showman, a figure often dominating the world of spiritualism. And yet, the question persisted. How can this phenomenon be explained? Is there truly a way to contact those who have passed into another world? And if so, do we have the moral right to interfere in this secret process? Bess continued to share the story of the code and how it had transformed her understanding of life and death after the seance. She recalled how Houdini had told her that if anyone could find a way to return after death, it would be him. Perhaps he had kept his word? This story remains one of the most captivating in the history of spiritualism. It raises not only questions about the nature of life and death, but also encourages all of us to ponder what might await us beyond the known. The seance with Arthur Ford left a profound impact not only on Bess Houdini's life, but also on the collective consciousness of society at the time. The public attention that this event garnered led many people to confront questions they may have put off for years. Is death truly the end? Is it possible that the souls of our loved ones remain with us even after they have left the physical world? Bess began something of a mission, sharing this experience that had become a turning point for her. She emphasized that the code was genuine and that Arthur Ford could not have known it by chance. Her words were bolstered by her own reputation. She was known as a rational and skeptical person who did not believe in charlatan methods. Her support for the authenticity of the seance lent further credibility to Ford's words. At the same time, however, critics continued to voice their doubts. Some speculated that Arthur Ford might have discovered the code through bribery or trickery. And while Bess denied this, the question of authenticity remained unresolved for many. But isn't it human nature to doubt, even in the face of what seems undeniable? Undeniably, this seance became a catalyst for deeper exploration into spiritualism and its influence on society. And though Harry Houdini had fought against fraud in this field during his lifetime, his name, after his death, became synonymous with the connection between the worlds of the living and the dead. His promise to return after death, if it were possible, was what had sustained Bess's faith even in her darkest times. Arthur Ford, for his part, did not seek to exploit this story for personal gain. He often spoke of his role as one of service, not to draw attention to himself, but to help people find answers to their questions. In his speeches, Ford emphasized the importance of spiritual work and reminded others that each of us possesses the ability to cultivate an inner sensitivity to the unseen. It is fascinating how the seance with Arthur Ford captivated not only the spiritualist community, but also the broader public. People began questioning their deepest beliefs. What is real? How much are we willing to accept beyond what we can perceive with our senses? This story raised more questions than it answered, yet that was precisely what made it so memorable. A central aspect of this story is the emotional impact it left on everyone who heard about it. For believers, the seance was confirmation that the boundary between life and death might be permeable. For skeptics, it was a reason to look closer and question even more critically. But regardless of which side they were on, no one remained indifferent. The encounter between Bess and Ford left hardly anyone untouched. What do you think of this story? Could it really be that the words spoken through Arthur Ford came directly from Harry Houdini? Or was it a deception, a coincidence, or perhaps even something that goes beyond our rational understanding? Everyone may find their own answer, but these questions are at the heart of this narrative. The seance itself reminds us of a deeply human need, the desire to explore the unknown, particularly what lies beyond death. And even if the ultimate answers may remain forever out of reach, the search for truth has its own intrinsic value. It prompts us to reflect, to open up, and to push the boundaries of our understanding. For Bess Houdini, the seance was not only an emotional turning point, but also a form of closure. For years, she had tried to keep Harry's memory alive and had hoped that his promise to return after death would come true. After the seance, she felt her faith had gained a newfound strength. She began to understand that the message she had received was more than just words. It was a symbol of the eternal connection between their souls. Through this experience, Bess gained deeper insights into the power of human relationships. She began to embrace the idea that love and bonds can endure beyond death. The message she received through Ford seemed to hold not only personal significance, but also universal truths. It was a reminder that emotional connections have a power that can transcend even the boundary between life and death. Arthur Ford himself was also changed by this experience. He understood that the seance would spark discussions and criticism, but this did not deter him. His mission as a medium was not to convince skeptics, but to provide comfort to those seeking answers. He devoted himself especially to people grappling with loss, offering them hope. For him, it was not about placing himself at the center, but about building a bridge, a connection to something greater that goes beyond what we can comprehend. At that time, neither Bess nor Arthur realized that their meeting would lay the foundation for a burgeoning movement within the culture of the 20th century. Although not a new concept, spiritualism gained renewed momentum following this seance. People began to discuss death, grief, and the possibility of connecting with lost loved ones more openly. This event sparked a new wave of interest in the paranormal and the spiritual realm. However, not everyone welcomed these discussions. Many scientists and critics became more vocal in opposing the ideas of spiritualism. They argued that the seance with Ford was nothing more than a lucky coincidence, or even a meticulously planned deception. Some suspected that Bess might have subconsciously influenced the events, as she desperately sought confirmation of her beliefs. This contrast between faith and skepticism became one of the central themes of the story. Bess could neither prove nor disprove the authenticity of the message, but her emotions spoke volumes. She felt that she had received exactly what she had been waiting for over the years, a confirmation of Harry's love and presence, even after his death. And what do you think? Is it possible that those we love remain with us, even if we can no longer see or hear them? This question, whether the dead can truly communicate with the living, remained one of the most significant and contentious issues of that era's culture. The seance with Ford not only brought these questions to the forefront, but also highlighted how deeply intertwined faith and doubt can be, often leading to profound emotional conflicts. Bess Houdini herself sought answers to these questions, experiencing waves of emotion as she reflected on the words spoken through Arthur Ford. Yet, each of these moments reaffirmed that the true understanding of what had transpired could not be neatly categorized or explained. After the seance, Bess became more introspective. She often shared how important it was to hear Harry's voice again after so many years of separation. It wasn't just communication. It was a shared experience that was difficult to put into words. It felt like a piece of their connection had been restored after his death. This moment became a turning point in her life, allowing her to say, "I feel his presence." Arthur Ford, during this period, found himself burdened in a unique way by his role. He understood that his newfound fame would no longer be solely tied to his abilities as a medium, but also to the many questions that arose after the seance. Despite the challenges of becoming such a public figure, he remained committed to his mission. Ford emphasized that what had occurred was not a show or performance. It was a genuine attempt to help people find peace by giving them a chance to connect with those they had lost. For Ford, it was not about theatrics or manipulation, but something much deeper. These emotional and spiritual experiences prompted many who heard Bess's accounts to reflect on their own relationships with the departed. Is there truly something that a person leaves behind after death? Can we ever fully comprehend the boundary between reality and what we wish to believe? These questions were never easy to answer, and each person sought their own response, shaped by their faith, beliefs, and personal experiences. We often resist considering the possibility that more remains after death than just memories. But what if there is an invisible connection leading to something greater? What if the seance with Ford symbolized more than just coincidence? Perhaps it was this experience that led many to believe in the existence of something unseen beyond the physical world, a force that could still be part of our reality. There was a certain magic in the act of communication through Arthur Ford, captivating people and encouraging deep contemplation. This seance, with its emotional intensity and the remarkable message from Harry Houdini, became a symbol of the invisible boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead. Observing Bess's reaction, one could see that it was not merely a message for her, but an experience of profound personal connection. It was her own spiritual journey, one that would likely never end, as in that moment, the sense of her husband's presence felt so real. Houdini, as we know, was a skeptic who often exposed spiritualists attempting to deceive people by claiming supernatural abilities. Yet even he, after his death, seemed to leave behind not just a mystery, but also a signal that there might be more beyond the physical realm. This became especially poignant when Bess received the message during the seance with Ford, a message she believed confirmed her greatest hope, that Harry was truly still with her. And although many continued to doubt the authenticity of the event, the emotional impact it had on Bess was undeniable. She was convinced she had felt a real connection with her husband, even if that connection was invisible to others. In this belief, Bess found her own spiritual strength. Furthermore, this seance marked a pivotal moment when spiritualism and mediumship reached a new level of attention. People who had previously approached such phenomena with skepticism began to recognize that some experiences could not be easily explained by scientific methods alone. They started to understand that there might be something greater, something that could not be seen or measured. And while science continued to reject the possibility of communication with the afterlife, many people began to believe in ways to connect with those who were no longer among the living. This seance became not only a significant turning point in Bess Houdini's life, but also the beginning of a new era, one where faith and science, understanding and skepticism converge in the search for an answer to one of humanity's greatest questions. Is there life after death? And can we ever cross the boundaries of this reality?